You are literally holding up a bad wall with your spine. Welcome back to Up Go Wise, where today we're opening up a really fascinating concept, the dip. I want you to picture a hallway that's only half built. The wall only stands because you keep leaning into it, day after day. You probably call that lean discipline. But, each night your back knows the truth. That beam isn't asking for courage anymore. It's asking for a verdict. And reaching that verdict, well, that requires the dip.
Which brings us to this book, The Dip by Seth Godin. Now, Seth Godin didn't write The Dip as some soft, feel-good pep talk. No, he wrote The Dip as a severe structural load test. It asks one absolutely crucial question before your pride even gets a chance to speak up. Is your pressure actual proof of progress, or is it just waste? Here at Upwise, we believe practice has to begin before philosophy. You don't just need more effort, you need a structural inspection.
So let's define the architecture we're actually working with here. What exactly is the dip? It's basically the load corridor before a real arch. Think about it. A true arch requires compression before it holds, right? That's the designed hard part. It's the narrow span between amateur comfort and rare skill. But here's the trap we all fall into. A false corridor, a sealed hall, is really hard too. We constantly mistake any difficulty for value. But standing under a heavy beam just because heaviness feels serious, that's a mistake. Pain does not prove meaning, and pressure does not prove worth. Which brings us to a pretty harsh reality slap. You call it discipline, and honestly, it feels honorable, but your habit is actually turning public pressure into load-bearing guilt. That guilt has a very clean, professional-sounding voice. It tells you to stay, or the room is going to judge you. It whispers that a serious builder finishes every single corridor they start. But your real fear isn't that quitting wastes effort. Your fear is that quitting makes you visible. You're staying just because the room will judge your exit. And structurally speaking, that is a fatal error. And here is exactly where the logic of your expert voice just eats itself. My own voice often tells me, hey, real builders do not walk away. But if real builders literally never walk away, they just become servants to every cracked hallway they wander into. You're stuck in this awful dilemma. Keep reinforcing the cracked corridor, and you look loyal. Leave the project now, and you look exposed. Both of those exits hurt. So what do? You delay. But delay is never neutral. You're just spending your best material while pretending to wait.
Okay, so how do we fix this? We begin our structural inspection. Step 1, load test. You need to locate this strain. Right now, I want you to name just one project or commitment in your life that survives solely because others might judge your exit. Don't even try to fix it yet. Just mark the beam. That mark isn't a failure, it's just a measurement. You stop asking whether pain is present, and you start asking whether that pain is actually placed correctly. Imagine a simple brass plumb bob suspended in a massive vaulted room. Dust is resting along the skirting board, and this brass weight just hangs there from a frayed cord. It doesn't shout, it doesn't praise. It only shows the true vertical line. That's our anchor for today. A true structural verdict doesn't need volume, and it certainly doesn't need applause. It only needs alignment. The plumb line doesn't flatter your history. It simply asks whether the wall is true.
So we have to ask the question, does this difficulty sit inside a worthy arch or a sealed hall? Now there's a second behavioral face of pride we need to talk about. It tells you, well, if it feels hard, I must have chosen wrong. It hides as self-care. It wants the finished, beautiful arch without any of the necessary compression. But ease cannot be the test, just as difficulty cannot be the final verdict. Remember, every real arch must press before it holds. Seth Godin makes this point brilliantly. He says, winners quit all the time. They just quit the right stuff at the right time. He makes it absolutely clear that strategic quitting is not a collapse. It's demolition with permits. Some walls literally must come down so the rest of the building can actually breathe. And you aren't asking the crowd for a demolition permit. That permit comes from the blueprint, not the balcony. That brings us to our second structural inspection point, plumb line, test for the keystone. I challenge you to write down the exact specific sentence your pride uses to keep you in a bad project. Then look at that sentence and ask whether it names a real beam or if it just names a crowd of watchers. Are you addicted to the effort, or are you addicted to the identity that effort protects? The identity that says, I am the one who never quits. This book asks for a much finer name. I am the one who quits what blocks the arch. Let's strip away the warmth for a second and look at a cold, hard fact. A past cost cannot become an architect. This is the second major misunderstanding we face when building our lives.
We worship our spent material. That clean voice of pride returns and says, "You already paid for this. Honor the cost. Prove the old pour of concrete was wise." But the bags are empty. The hours are gone. A past cost can only ever become evidence. It should guide your next pour. It should never command it.
And here is your second dilemma. If you stay, the old effort feels redeemed. If you leave, the old effort feels completely wasted. This is literally the sunk cost fallacy wearing a hard hat. Building just to protect a receipt is not discipline, it's simply accounting. The error exposed by this book is using your spent effort as a permit for fresh waste. You really have to ask, does staying make you larger, or is staying making you smaller? Which leads us to our third and final structural check. Permit check. Remove walls built by pride. Look at your very next unit of effort. Demand to know what structural right it has to exist. Does it actually have a doorway? We have to stop letting fear sign our permits. Stop letting applause approve our beams. The self refines when it can withdraw without total collapse, and it refines when it can stay without needing a theatrical display. Because here is the golden rule, the absolute core premise of this entire book. Never quit something with great long-term potential just because you can't deal with the stress of the moment. The right hard thing deserves your entire structure. This doesn't give you a softer name for panic. It gives you a much harder, sharper name for discernment. Don't ask for a life without strain. Ask for a strain that can actually carry a roof.
You are the one who inspects the pressure. You are the one who asks whether the strain actually belongs. That bad wall you've been holding up, it taught you exactly where not to carry weight. So access your growth map and hear the absolute floor-dropping verdict of this book. Quit the wrong wall. This is the decision. Make it now. If not now, not ever. Here is your work for the next 24 hours as we teach at UpGoWise. Choose one active commitment. Write one sentence. This strain earns its place because. Notice whether your body tightens or settles.